I'm a guy that's 24. Each day I build some more. I like the sequels. I'm Rich Boy J. Hello boyos, Rich Boy J here back with another video, and this is going to be another episode of Your Questions Answered. If you're not familiar with it, Your Questions Answered is a Q&A series that I do here on this channel, so if you want to see one of your questions answered in one of these videos, leave it in the comment section below. Make sure it is LEGO Star Wars or LEGO Star Wars related, and then check back next week to see if you make the cut. First question is going to come from Chris Blank Productions. He says, where did you get the idea for your new intro, and why did you change it at this point in time? Great question. Everyone has been talking about this new intro that I have. I like it a lot. I think it's hilarious. And as for why I decided to do it, I don't really know. I guess the Caillou theme song was just kind of stuck in my head, and I just kind of started making my own versions of it. And I was like, yo, like that would be hilarious for, I guess, music to my YouTube intro. Because I mean, while I haven't really heard this complaint recently, I know like when I first switched over to my LEGO Star Wars intro, a lot of people were like, oh, it's a little too long, maybe add music to it to make it more interesting. And now I guess I found out like the perfect jingle to add to it. And it surprises people. Like, I love the look on people's faces, or just when people write comments and having heard the intro for the first time and just how funny they think it is. So that's just why I decided to do it. It was something completely random. The bigger question is, what the heck am I going to do when I turn 25 years old? Probably come up with a new jingle. I haven't thought too much about it, but I'm sure I'll figure something out. That's a problem for future Jay. Present Jay is taken care of, though. So thanks for the question, man. Next question comes from Kappa Bricks. He says, how would you feel if they did a line of Microfighters at a larger scale that retailed $25? I kind of feel like that would defeat the purpose of a Microfighter. Like, that would, in essence, be a macro fighter. Like, if they just started making bigger Microfighters. And at $25, like, you're starting to converge into territory of just like a normal system scale set. Like, we have tons of system scaled sets at that price range anyway, so I don't see the need for doing a microfighter at a larger scale. I think the intention for microfighters is to, one, meet like the $10 price point, and two, give people a build and a figure, right? Like, two things that people like. You know, the builds are cool, but I'd say probably the bigger appeal to it is the figure at a low price point. So at the point where you're just making the ship bigger, you may as well just do like a system scale version of whatever vehicle you were doing anyways. So I don't see that happening. Next question comes from Hunter Wardle. He says, hello boyo, my question is, what does your family think of your Lego collection / obsession? Do they also collect Lego, or are you the only one? I'm the only one in my family who collects Lego, and I mean, they're very supportive of it. Like, shout out to my mom, who has let me take up a big portion of the house with my collection. Like, at this point, there are returns on it, right? Like, I've monetized my YouTube channel, so that's certainly a help. It's not just all for my hobby per se, but she's been really understanding throughout this whole process. Like, she knew how inspired I was when I went to my first convention, and then how it's kind of become my big thing ever since then. And she's been cool with it, so I certainly appreciate that. But as for like whether or not my family collects it, no. Interestingly enough, like, a lot of my initial Lego collection when I was a kid actually came from my cousins. They were hand-me-downs, and we used to actually play a lot together with our Lego when we were younger. They, in essence, grew out of it. I apparently never grew out of it. So at this point, I have pretty much anyone in my family who played with Lego. Like, they ended up giving it to me because they know that's just what I do at this point. Next question comes from Bonbad Qui Gungan. I love that name so much. He says, hey Jay, what is your favorite planet from the sequel trilogy? P.S. The sequels are my favorite trilogy, and people don't think I'm serious, but you also favor them as well, which make me feel less alone on the sequel trilogy boat. Yes, shout out to all my sequelists out there. If you don't respect the sequels, I got some bad news for you. I don't know what that bad news is, but it's definitely bad news. But favorite planet from the sequel trilogy, I gotta go with Starkiller Base. I just love it. I love the aesthetic. I love the fact that it's a First Order base. As much like I love the Death Star, and this is essentially the First Order's Death Star, but done differently. Like, it's in a planet, and whenever we were first seeing like concept images, or not even concept images, just images from the first film in this trilogy, essentially, like, I love the fact that kind of in the background of the base, you could see that it was literally built into the planet. Like, you can see a lot of like rock formations kind of built into the Imperial architecture. I always thought that was just like a cool and interesting take on the Imperial architecture. Like, previously, when you're dealing with Imperial stuff per se, everything's pretty uniform. Everything, it's all man-made. But to see this like man-made imperial installation in a planet, so you have those organic elements as well. I just thought that was really cool. So Starkiller Base is definitely my favorite planet. Some honorable mentions. I know it catches a lot of flack, but I love the idea of Cantonica and specifically Canto Bite. I would be a very nice mock to make. It's essentially like space Las Vegas, maybe like a higher class space Las Vegas. So I'm a big fan of that. Dakar is also really cool. For the most part, I really do like all the planets we've seen so far. We haven't gone to a planet in the sequel trilogy that I've kind of been like, I don't like the aesthetic of it. I think a big part of that is the fact that they've been using real locations for them for the most part, which is, I think that just goes such a long way in just making it feel more real, feel more tangible, helping you immerse yourself even more where the characters go. So I really think the sequels have nailed locations thus far. Next question comes from I Am Leg. He says, have you heard of Brick Owl? And if so, do you think it could potentially hurt Bricklink? I personally think Bricklink will always reign supreme, but what do you think? Yeah, Bricklink is so established at this point that unless something catastrophic happens, I don't think anything's going to supersede Bricklink as the premier like aftermarket Lego source. But Brick Owl is a great resource from what I've heard. I've personally never used it. I actually know people who exclusively use Brick Owl, so clearly there is some value in there. So if you're someone who wants to just, I don't know, have more options than buying Lego pieces, Brick Owl is an alternative you can use. But yeah, I mean, I don't see it ever seriously competing with Bricklink because Bricklink has just been around for so long and everyone uses it, everyone loves it at this point. So it is still a good thing to have options. So I'm not going to say you shouldn't look into Brick Owl because, I mean, the more options we have as people who are buying Lego, the better. What's an element of Star Wars that you're surprised Lego hasn't put more effort into or made more sets based on? I know for me, I've always loved the obscurity of Star Wars and I enjoy getting strange slash wacky background or B to C level characters and sets. This was an interesting question and I really tried to think a lot about it. Like, what is one aspect of Star Wars I feel, or like Star Wars that Lego kind of doesn't look into as much as they should? One of the things that kind of came to my mind was capital ships. Like, and that's not to say they completely ignore them. Like, we get a lot of Lego capital ships, but they seem to play it safe when it comes to them. And so far as like they're really just try to do like the same types of capital ships, like any Star Destroyer they'll pretty much do because that's safe. The Tantive 4 they'll do, but outside of that, like all the other capital ships we get seem to be one-offs. Like the Republic Cruiser at the beginning of episode 1. There was that one Rebel frigate we got from Rebels. We got the Republic frigate from the Clone Wars. But I just feel like they could do a much better job at kind of giving us a more diverse array of capital ships. Like, I know they've done the Malevolence, which I didn't really love that set. But I don't know. I feel like we could get more Separatist capital ships. We could certainly get more Rebel capital ships. Like there's a few Mon Calamari ships that I feel are no-brainers for them to do at some point. So I think capital ships is something they can give us a more diverse array of, especially at the UCS scale, right? Because those are that's really the perfect scale for something like that, and they seem to just be content with doing Star Destroyers of some kind. I'd like to see them, I don't know, do a little bit more when it comes to capital ships and the sets they're willing to make. Hillbilly Cal says, excuse my Star Wars ignorance, I am trying to learn, but what is Batuu? I searched but couldn't find anything. Batuu is the planet that is where, how do I even explain this? Batuu is the location of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. So Galaxy's Edge is the theme park and the canonical location as for where that park is supposed to be representing is Batuu. That's just what it is. Final question comes from Enthert. Always nice to see this boyo around. He says, if you were to build a Jedi mock, would the giant fallen Jedi statue be shaped like a huge minifigure? This relates a wider topic of how realistic different builders like to go with their builds and what, if anything, should break realism. For example, I know some builders that purposefully build things squat to match the unique anthropometry of a minifigure, or equally use the play scale ships alongside minifig scale ones. Just figured this will be an interesting point of discussion. Yes, so this is something I actually had to deal with pretty recently when I was building my Vardos mock. As you guys remember, I had the Admiral Versio statue, which I believe should be up there. You can kind of see it. It's like right there. That's where the statue of Admiral Versio is. And the big decision was, am I going to make it styled like a big minifigure, or do I just make it styled like a human but built out of bricks? I think if you want to stay consistent and like it probably makes the most sense to do it styled like a minifigure. However, some things you're gonna run into, like it's gonna make more sense to do it more styled like a human. Like for the big, Jedi statue that's in the ground, it probably would almost make more sense to do it kind of shaped like a human because it's made out of like rock formation, so you would want to capture a lot of the crevices and things like that. I think it's really just up to the builder. Like, I think there is definitely a charm whenever you do like stay consistent with the shape of a minifigure. But certain things, for example, there's the big statue that's like this on Jeddah. I forget even what it is, but there's the big statue like this, and just the way that that's shaped, it looks much better when you try to like build it to be accurate to a human as opposed to a minifigure. Whereas with Admiral Versio, like it's a pretty simple statue of just a person kind of standing there. So for me, I don't know, it looked more consistent with the rest of the mock to just do it that way because it's a statue that's chiseled out of whatever, and it just like there weren't too many like cracks and crevices that I needed to capture that would be necessary for me to just do a human-esque brick built version of it. But this is an interesting point of discussion for the comments below. I would love to know if someone's building a mock and there's like a super structure of a person or humanoid looking thing. Do you guys think it should look like a bigger minifigure, or are you content with them just making it look like the proportions that a human would have? I would love to know you guys' take on that. But that's going to finish up the video today, guys. I hope you enjoyed checking out your questions answered. Of course, if you want to see one of your questions answered in one of these videos, leave it in the comment section below. Make sure it's Lego Star Wars or Lego Stars related, and then check back next week to see if you made the cut. If you like what I do, go ahead and support the video by hitting the like button, support the channel by smashing that subscribe button, and I'll be back again very soon.